welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, for our conversation this morning, or at least for the first part of our conversation this morning, we are being joined by Mr. Ashworth, who is the chairman of the Studley Park Enterprise Limited. Good morning and welcome to you, sir.
Good morning, Kandace. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Tobago. You know, go nationally.
Yes.
And of course, you always enjoyed an international audience. Let me take the opportunity, Kandace, to congratulate Tobago Update on its growth. I'm quite sure that this is just the beginning of a lot of good things to come.
Certainly. And we're grateful for your support as well. Now, moving into our conversation this morning, now I want to get an idea of what's been happening in terms of the licenses and the permits, because for a while we had some issues where Spell was not getting those licenses and so on to operate in the way they needed to operate at Spell.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting that you started off on that. And that is very interesting. Let me just say to the listening public that subsequent to my last visit to Tobago Update, Spell now has a blasting license, and we have been blasting material. We also have a provisional permit as a mining license. The biggest problem that we continue to have is that of an export license. Let me tell you why that is a big problem for us. You know, interesting, I just printed this before I left the house because I wanted to make a point. If Tobago is to meet its full potential, then every avenue for productivity, every avenue to be able to generate income must be explored to its fullest potential. As it is now, the Studley Park Enterprise Limited is one of those areas that can make a major difference to the Tobago economy. That is so because in the region there are a number of changes, inclusive of Trinidad, a number of changes that is taking place in terms of infrastructure. And the demand for the andesites that we have, the rocks that we have in Tobago is extremely high because of its abrasion, its abrasive level. And but there are a number of setbacks that we would face as a result of not having an export license. Let me just start by saying, as of now, those that we looked at and decided that they are credible, the demand for material between, let's say before the end of this year, ranging for a 3-year period, is 9,333,504 tons of material.
And this is just for 2023 alone.
This is just export.
And
this has nothing to do with Tobago. Yeah, this is just Guyana, right? That when you take that into consideration as an average of $22 US per ton, it works out to 205,333,370. That's US dollars. If you do the further breakdown into TT at 6.8, you're talking about $1.4 billion. And this is up to about 3 weeks ago, because the new request we have not yet put together, that the board will look at that today at its meeting to see what could. The question is, are we in a position to meet this demand? Yes or no? Yes, in that the material is available. One of the problems that Studley Park has is that they have aging infrastructure. But if you have a $205 million US dollar request over 2 to 3 year period, it means that you can purchase new equipment and be able to pay for it in an extremely short space of time, because the upgrade, we are looking at it, the first figures we have, I think the Chief Secretary would have alluded to it in his budget speech, about $60 million.
Yes.
At his TT. 60 million TT dollars. And that will give us the necessary plan that we need to meet the demand that I just spoke about.
Now, are we able to meet any part of that demand right now?
Yes, we could. We could. And I'm getting to that, but I'm trying to show you how important this is. Because once we have this in place, it means that we are able to lend to the Tobago economy in a 2-year period, 205 million US dollars. We are already in a US dollar crunch, foreign exchange crunch. So to be able to bring this kind of money into the island and into the country will help our foreign exchange situation tremendously. As it is now, what we are working on is some upgrade to the plans. Then again, you have a US dollar problem, and that the majority of our parts are not available in Tobago. And if they are available, the cost with which the suppliers charge you for them, it is so bad that we want to buy a software to set up our preventative maintenance schedules, to keep track of stock and stuff like that. 6,000 US dollars. And the bank tells us, and I met that situation, that we couldn't get that. I think it is last 2 weeks or so, the bank would have finally said, okay, you can get the 6,000. To get a credit card, to be able to pay those things, for the first time ever, we have been told that you have to get a letter from the Minister of Finance saying that you can spell a company who can pay its bill, could get a credit card. It is almost as though there's from one thing to the next. But the important thing is, once allowed the issue of the export license, we are in a position to radically change the Tobago economy.
What is stopping the export license?
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Anything specific is hindering
Well,
it?
the last thing we heard is that there was an issue with paying of royalty. But that could not be the problem, because the paying of royalty is dependent on an audit by the Ministry of Energy, who have not yet sent a figure for the audit.
So
prior to that,
so there is the audit happening, or is
it's finished?
It's finished.
Finished a while.
And we haven't seen conclusions of the audit.
So it cannot be that you're telling me you have power over the audit, but you can't give me an export license because I didn't pay royalty. That you have not said to me what royalty was. A couple years ago, even before my time, a former chairman would have wrote to the ministry and said, listen, in light of the issue for export license and stuff like that, we are offering to pay, I think it's $600,000 until you work it out. The company never received a response to that letter today. But let me tell you what we lose as a result of that. And I normally don't even write stuff down, but I want to be very, very, very careful. In terms of career opportunities, one of the things that we have not taken into consideration is the importance of spell, in the important role spell can play in Tobago in terms of economic activities, not only from the foreign exchange it can bring, but they turn around in the local economy. At Spell, we hire engineers, equipment operators, both heavy and light, plant operators, stores personnel, HR people, marketing, finance, mechanics, welders, safety officers, ENTs, ambulance drivers, security personnel, plant maintenance crew, ground maintenance crew, blasters, truck drivers. And these are directly. The indirect of that is that exporting this much material will mean no truck in Tobago will be out of work for at least the next 3 years. These people are then going to go to the groceries, they're going to go to the doctor, they're going to go to the restaurants, they're going to, the children in terms of school books, in terms of all that, is going to be positively impacted by this. And that is why it is so important for us to be able to realize the full potential of spell. And my question would remain, why would we have a potential money earner as spell and not remove all the stumbling blocks? But there's another thing that I want to, again, emphasize. The issue here is not just getting an export license. We want to get an export license that covers a certain period. Because as it is now, what is happening is that every time you wish to export a badge of material, you have to apply for an export license specific to that badge.
And I think we're seeing the situation happening with the scrap iron dealers as well.
Right.
And then we had the president of the Scrap Iron Dealers Association on Monday stating that he's been victimized. He's not being allowed to have his license to export. So what's happening in the country?
I don't understand, because if we have a situation where based on the demand that we have, they're just about 9.5 million ton request. It means that we will have a batch turning around in Studley Park at least 6 days a week. And in some cases, more than one badge, 6 days a week. You understand what that does for the Tobago economy. But to do this, imagine you have to apply for an export license every day in order to get one. Whereas there's an omnibus license that allows you a year, 2 years of export. And we're not greedy. We'll sell for a year at a time. But there must be some predictability. We must be able to say to these potential contracts, yes, we can supply this. We have an export license. And these are people who have to pay in advance and in US, because we're not crediting material.
Is Spell opposed to the idea of paying royalties?
But Spell cannot be opposed to the idea of paying royalty. That's the law of the land. Spell have to pay its royalty. They still have to pay its royalty. We pay VAT on material. Spell have to pay, because Spell cannot be a law upon itself. Spell is a part of what happens in the country. It's a part that have to adhere to the laws of the country. And the laws of the country say once you take out natural resources, you have to pay royalty.
So then what's been the conversation like with the ministry in trying to get this sorted out? Because you already have a client waiting and ready.
These are a number of clients. And these are those that said that we have already vetted and said, okay, these people can pay this is that. And then there are others. Now we have to look and see, okay, can we meet the demand of any additional? Because we also have a national demand, or should I say a Trinidad demand, and then we have a Tobago demand. So we want to ensure that we can take care of the local demand as well as the international demand.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with our conversation with Mr. Ashworth Jack. Wake up with Kandace and Denise. Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Well, viewers, we are continuing our conversation this morning with the chairman, the executive chairman, I should say, of the Studley Park Enterprise Limited, Mr. Ashworth Jack. Now, before we went to the break, we were speaking a little bit about, some of the licenses and some of the stumbling blocks that are in place to prevent exports from happening at the Studley Park Enterprises Limited. Now, if I remember back in 2015, when Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley came into office, one of the major things that he championed was that of privatizing the Studley Park quarry. And this is how Spell came to be in a couple of years later in 2017. And then there was a situation within Trinidad and Tobago where he sort of placed an embargo on the export of some of those raw materials and said that we needed to keep them here within Trinidad and Tobago because there was a lot of construction. That was when we had some problems with the energy side of things, and we were trying to control what was happening here in Trinidad and Tobago and to reduce the amount of imports and all those things. So, I mean, how is that now? Is that affecting Spell? Or are those things still placed on the Studley Park quarry?
I think that the issue of Studley Park then Studley Quarry, now come Studley Park Enterprise Limited, being made private was an extremely good decision that was made. The problem that we continue to have is that we still have the public service, a lot of the public service systems that were in place. Even in terms of salaries and stuff like that, need to be reviewed in terms of industry standards. And in order to do that, you must be able to afford to pay those. Kandace, we have outstanding bills at Studley Park from as far back as 2018. And because of the age of those machines, and because there was never a preventative maintenance schedule, because the maintenance of the plant was not at the level that it should be, your monthly bill for maintenance of especially the crushing plants is extremely high. And we need to be able to buy a new plant, be able to shut down those plants for a while, do a total overhaul of the moving parts. Because, of course, there's a lot of iron, but there are moving parts, your generators, and stuff like that, that needs to be updated. Your rollers, and your cones, your crushers, those need to have, and we have just put in place a preventative maintenance schedule for that. But it also will take a lot of money to put it back to where it should be. Not money that we can't make. We're not asking anybody to give us money to do that. We are saying, give us the means by which we can earn our own money. And the only stumbling block for that right now is an export license. The only stumbling block. Everything else will fall in place. We have banks knocking down the doors of Studley Park saying, listen, we have heard you all. We didn't realize the potential of Studley Park, and therefore we will be able to do this. And you see, the thing about that is that this is not the only, the crushing plant and stuff is not the only part of the industry. Up there, we also have the asphalt plant, right? The hot mix. So we make hot mix for works and for other private people. We have a concrete batching plant. As it is now, we're doing it just for works because a couple of years ago, a former secretary stopped the sale to the public and they sold the pump truck. That's one of the most interesting decisions I've ever heard, especially the sale of the pump truck, because even if you're only selling internally to works, you will still need the pump truck. So according to where works want to do some casting, they cannot do it from Studley Park because they'll have to still go and outsource the material in order to do it because they don't have a pump truck. That's something that we have to change. And there's enough room in the economy for Studley Park to be competitive, even in the sale of concrete. And we intend to get back to the sale of concrete to be competitive. Because apart from that, there's also the jetty. And the last time I forgot this, and my officer didn't, never let me live it down, that we also test material at our lab for not only Tobago places in Trinidad, all the work at the airport for China Railway, all the testing is done by the Studley Park Enterprise Limited. And so there are a number of things that we can do in order to keep money in Tobago, in order to create employment in Tobago. And once the issue of this license is sorted out, we have no choice but to go to a second and possibly a third shift. Right away, you're talking about employing between 50 and 70 people.
Is there anything that Spell can do at this point in time to, I don't know, try to
plead?
Only plead.
Plead.
Is there any legal source of action that you guys can take?
We would prefer to exhaust all the honey actions. I am an ardent believer in that you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And so what we are doing is that we are pleading, listen, if there are some meetings to be had, if the ministry thinks that there are some things they want, our team is willing to meet with them to see what their concerns are. But as it is now, we don't have any queries. So it is like, okay, If we do have any queries, then what's the problem? And so that's where we are, and so that there are so many things that could happen at Spell. There are so many things that we need to do differently. The intention is to make Spell a flagship because it is the only industrial type business there is in Tobago. And the potential for this place is endless. It is endless. You could imagine, beside what we do internally, we will also have a situation where we'll be able to hire contractors, as have been done in the past. We had to release some of those equipment because we didn't have a blasting license. We can't produce enough to export. So some of them we had to release some of them. Some of the we had something that were unnecessary. And there, for example, we had a compressor that we were renting for at one time 35, up to as much as $45,000 a month. But the price of the compressor was $90,000. And it went on for years. And the question is, why would you rent a piece of equipment for $45,000 a month when the price of the equipment is 2 months rental? So there are a lot of those things that we looked at, and we had to do some tweaking and stuff like that. And the intent is to make Studley Park efficient, productive, and profitable.
Now, I want to also talk about some of the potential, and I mean, because when you talk about Studley Park, Quarry, Studley Park Enterprises Limited. Studley Park Enterprises, let's specify. Studley Park Enterprises Limited. And it is Enterprises Limited because it does not just speak to the rock.
Exactly.
Not just the rotten rock, as we commonly call it here in Tobago, because there's the asphalt part of it, there's the concrete part of it. There's a whole lot of also downstream potential could come out of Studley.
Right away. I have just put a stop to the disposal of topsoil yesterday. Yesterday I discovered we dispose of topsoil.
Dispose of topsoil?
Yeah,
meaning
craziness.
We throw it away.
Let's throw it away. And that has been going on for 100 years. I mean, it's crazy. Topsoil can be used to fix the playing fields. There are home gardeners who want topsoil. There are farmers who want topsoil. There are a number of things. So we are now recalibrating Studley Park to have different type of materials available. Of course, as it is now, we have the rotten rock. We have the different types of aggregate. We have armored rock, which we commonly call boulders, and stuff like that. But there are a number of other things that we can do. Right now, we're testing. I don't want to let that out of the bag. We're testing at a material to have a certain kind of effect, a downstream effect. We're testing that right now. Our lab is doing that, and that's why I feel so strongly about having a well-equipped, modernized lab. So we're working on that right now. We also want to be able to invite schools to visit the quarry, because I don't think that people understand the potential for professional, semi-professional, skilled labor that the quarry could provide. As I said, it goes from as high as engineers to all the way down to laborers, right? And everything in between. We have professional welders, we have equipment operators, we have plant operators, and I don't think that enough persons know the potential and therefore things that they can work towards in terms of employment.
What about the potential of the downstream industry? Because I remember back in the day, Mr. Hochroy Charles used to talk about brake shoes and sand and paper and those things. Are those things still a potential?
It was not just potential. If you could remember, before the 2001 election, the year 2000, the equipment for the brake shoe factory came into the country. It was in Tobago. Eventually, it was taken down to Cove and left there to rot. And the company then took us in Tobago to court, won, and we had to pay, Tobago had to pay them for the equipment that they allowed to rot. And now the rock have not gotten any softer. So the potential is still there. And so, but the first thing we need to do is to put our house in order where we can look at how the amount of production we can have, money we can make to set up downstream, because downstream will require a certain kind of investment. And so you have to do the things that gives you the quickest return for your dollar. Now, at the same time, we work on the downstream, and we'll be more than happy to welcome partners in doing the downstream industry.
As it is right now, without the export license, what kind of revenue is Spell producing?
Spell can produce enough revenue, have not produced enough revenue, sorry, to make it profitable. And that is because the amount of money that is spent on maintenance is extremely high. Old plants, you can't shut them down, spend a decent amount of money to have them up and running. And so what we need, and again, I just want to make this absolutely clear. Spell is not asking for any handout. Our potential is too great to beg. What we are asking for is to be treated fairly. Treat as any oil company will be treated, where they'll have an export license for a year or two, allow us to make money, allow us to bring foreign exchange, allow us to create employment, allow us to create an economic boom. We will take care of all those, because we can borrow the money. We have the potential to pay it back. And once that happens,
within a short space of time.
a short space of time. And once that happens, then we can then look at downstream, how we can do downstream. We can even start looking at how we not sell material from Spell to build drains, because of the quality of the material. We can look at airports around the world to see where around the world have airports that we are close to, and be able to sell, because it's material that is more suited for that high-end kind of industry. As it is now, you just have to sell. Because, we are in the process of putting together some material for Netco that have been outstanding. Well, I have been having very, very cordial conversations with both the chairman and the CEO of Netco, because we had some material for them, but of course we didn't have a blasting license. So we could not have produced the material to give them. Now that we have a blasting license, we have an agreement on time and date that they will send their badge to collect the material. Because we want to be able to meet every demand, but we must be in a position to so do by being able to put in the necessary equipment and machinery in order to meet that.
Now, Spell was present at TIC in Trinidad last year, and they had a very really nice put together display and so on. Did that generate any interest in Trinidad, or is it just the interest that was generated, which is based already there?
I am more than sure that it did. I'm quite sure that it did. I'm told about it, and we are supposed to be at TIC again this year. I'm told that it did, and of course, when you see the amount of interest that has been generated, it's something generated the interest. But so it very likely that would have been part of what generated the interest. But we also have to look at our proximity to the fastest growing economy in this part of the world.
That's Guyana.
And that is Guyana. Because we can get to Guyana faster than anybody else who wants to sell material, like Jamaica or St. Lucia. Mm-hmm. It makes sense for the Guyanese to buy material from us, because the cost of barging is a lot less. Beside which, when the decision was taken in 98, 99 to build the jetty in Studley Park, it was genius. Because one of the highest costs in material is haulage. That is why Trinidad is, even places in Trinidad, it is cheaper to bring material from Tobago. Because you have to haul it by truck, which is a small amount at a time. And the cost of that is astronomical. Mm. And so Tobago is poised because of its location and because of the location of the quarry through the jetty to create a major savings to our clients. And the turnaround time is a whole lot less. We can turn around a 5,000 ton barge in hours. Whereas if you're The only way you can do it in Trinidad, or even some of the places in Jamaica and stuff, is if you haul it, stockpile it close by, and then you be able to load your badge. But we can move straight from our facility with one haulage fee. Because if you stockpile, you have two haulage fees. You have to haul to the stockpile and then haul from the stockpile to the badge. In the case of Studley Park, one haulage fee, straight from our stockpile on the facility, onto the badge. And we turn around a badge in 3 hours, 5 hours, thereabout.
Is there any situation where this whole delay, I would say, in the grant of the export license, does it have to do, or might it have to do anything with the possibility of some middleman trying to come into the situation to take the material from Tobago to Trinidad and then from Trinidad to Guyana?
We will work with people. But the thing about that is that we also have a lot of direct requests from the government of Guyana. And we also have a situation where it doesn't matter who wants to buy material. Once they're paying the price, we say that it should be paid. And there's another caveat to that. We are also saying, and we're writing it into our contract, any material taken out of Studley Park and carried anywhere, it must say that the material came from Spell. Because we recognize in the past that people were taking Spell material, exported to other places through Trinidad, but Spell never got any mention. And we are saying no. If that is, we are writing into our contract. And it's simple. We're not asking you for anything. Just to tell the truth that the material emanated out of Studley Park Enterprise Limited.
All right, so we're getting ready to wrap up our conversations this morning with you, Mr. Jack. But I just want to give you a couple minutes just to, speak to the people of Tobago, because, I mean, especially at a time where there's so many questions floating around about Spell and what's been happening there.
I don't know if there are questions about Spell, though. I think that there will always be persons who dwell in the negative. Mm-hmm. That is normal. Growth requires that. Anytime you're growing, there are going to be persons who will try to stymie your growth, whether it be individuals, whether it be companies, whether it be organization. And I can bet anyone that since I've taken over Spell, there have never been an outcry for material. We are cutting our turnaround time to 15 minutes. A truck must not stay more than 15 minutes on the facility to be loaded. That is where we aim into. We have about 22 or 23 minutes now, because we have been constantly coming down. We're looking at 15 minutes. We want to be in a position, and we have put ourselves in a position where there's every material required available. Just before I came on set, someone mentioned me and said, "You're either very popular or very hated." I said, "Why?" I said, "I see that put up that you're going on Tobago Update. And there are certain set of people just light up." I said, "That's love." Some people don't know how to show love. So they show it in all kind of ways. This is Tobago. This is about Tobago. Spell is not a company owned by me, not a company owned by the present administration. Because the last administration had it is now passed on. Any administration who comes in will have Spell. And I have a maxim by which I live, that everything I touch, anybody who take it after me must meet it in a better place than I met it when I got in. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're doing.
All right, great. There you have it. Just the words of the Executive Chairman of Spell, Mr. Ashworth. Jack, in regards to the developments at Spell, the biggest challenge right now is getting that export license, because that is preventing some great revenue that could come into Trinidad and Tobago. So we're patiently waiting and see what's going on with the Ministry of Trade and Industries for that to happen. All right, so viewers, thank you for joining us for this part, but don't worry, we're not done yet. We've got a little bit more coming up for you after the break. We are people